Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today is the third block in the Flower Garden Quilt Along. This one is called the Tulip block, and I have gone ahead and I have made one set of these, which would be 4 blocks, and they're all in the same colorway. And this is a teal color. These little blocks you can see are not square, they're rectangular. They're 6 by 12 finish, so they're 6.5 by 12.5 at this point. And you're going to need 16 of these to make this quilt. So what I did with mine is I chose 4 different colorways, and I'm making 4 of each one of those. You can do this however you want. You can make them all the same. You can have them, half one colorway, half another. You can have each a different set of fabrics. They don't all have to match. So the thing about this, we don't have half square triangles, but we do have easy corner triangles. You can see like right here and down in here, these are all easy corner triangles. And so that means you're going to be drawing lines on the wrong side of some fabrics, and then you can be sewing along those lines. This really isn't difficult, but there are a couple of different techniques in here than what you may have used in the past. So just follow the instructions and you'll be able to do this, I'm pretty sure. Okay, now the stem is sewn in, it is not applique on, so you don't have to worry about that. If you're using directional fabrics, like here is a stripe, you'll want to try and match those up if you can. Now from block to block, on these teal ones, I got them all going the same direction, but if it's not possible, don't worry about that. It's really not that important. So just have fun with this. This is just something to, play around with and have some fun. And if you worry about directional fabrics, then maybe choose a different fabric for this particular block and try to avoid the directional fabrics. That'd probably be the easiest thing to do. So anyway, I hope you will join me in making these blocks, whether you make the entire quilt or just make a couple blocks for a pillow or a table runner or something. I hope you'll give it a try. Now the instructions are linked in the description box. There's a link there that will go to my blog, and it will have the instructions. So I do hope you'll stay with me, and I'll show you how to make this tulip block. Now here I have all of the fabrics laid out. Now this is a lot of fabric, but this is for 3 sets of the blocks. I've already got the teal tulips done. You can see those here. So this is for the other 3 sets of blocks. And so I'll show you what you need for these. Okay, A is going to be 2 5/8 inch squares, and you're going to need 1 for each block. B, you'll need 1 3 3/8 inch square, and you're going to cut this on the diagonal. I haven't cut these yet. C is 1 3.5 inch square, and D will be 1 3 7/8 inch square, and you'll cut this one on the diagonal also. And then E is 1 3.5 inch square. For F, you will need 1 strip that is 1 by 4.5 inches, and that will be your stem. G, you'll need 2 3.5 inch squares, and you're going to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of these. So I've already done that. Let's see if you can see that. This one's a little bit darker. There's a diagonal line here. H, you'll need 1 2.5 by 6.5 inch rectangle. I, you will need 4 2.5 inch squares, and you'll need to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of those. J is 2 3.5, excuse me. J is 2 3.25 by 4.5 inch rectangles, and then K is 1 4 1/4 inch square, and you'll cut this on both diagonals. So you'll cut this one both ways, making 4 triangles out of each square. So one of these will give you enough for 2 blocks. So you want to keep that in mind so that you don't overcut. 1 square will make enough for 2 blocks. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the flower head unit. And we're going to, on this pattern, I just start at the top of the block and work down. So we're going to work on this part first, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this unit here first. So this will require the A squares and then the K triangles. So first thing we have to do is to cut the K squares on both diagonals to get the triangles that we need. Okay, so I have my K square here, and I'm going to grab my ruler and my rotary cutter. Here we go. And I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to cut this on both diagonals. So I'm going to use my rotating mat for this. So if you have a rotating mat, this is a good place to use it. And if you don't, you just need to either walk around your cutting mat or just turn the pieces. So I'm just going to go from point to point. I'll lift that carefully and rotate my mat. You can just, you can rotate your cutting mat too. Your big mat, you can just rotate that if you want. And then I'm going to cut on this diagonal. Okay, so you need 2 for each block, so this will give you enough pieces for 2 blocks. So I'm going to set this aside for my next block. And what we're going to do is to take one of the A squares, and we're going to sew these K squares on them. And so we're going to one like this and one like this. So decide how you want your A square to face. Now this is a directional fabric, and I'm going to have all of my hearts with a point towards my right side. So what we're wanting to make is a big triangle. So this is kind of like doing a flying geese or a square and a square. We're going to have to sew one side on, and then flip it open and press, and then sew the other side on. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and do some sewing here. I'm going to set my stitch length at 2.0, and then I'm going to move my needle over 1 notch to the right because I want to sew with a scant 1/4 inch here, and this will just make everything go together a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and press this open. Okay, so this is what I have right now, and now I need to add the piece over here. So that is going to go like that. So I'm going to put these right sides together and sew that on. One tip for making these blocks is to chain piece them together, so kind of assembly sew. So do all of these pieces at once, and then do the next section, and just keep going that way, and you'll get through them a lot faster. Okay, so here's what we have. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim this down because we have a lot more than a 1/4 inch down here. So I want to trim that down, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that next. Okay, so we have a lot more than a 1/4 inch from here to here. What we have is probably more like 3/8. So I'm going to trim this down to 1/4 inch. And what I'm doing is the point of this square is going to go right on my 1/4 inch line, and then this 45-degree angle, I'm going to put that right along the pieced edge right there. And that will get me my 1/4 inch. So that way I know this is square here, and then this is all extra, so I can trim this off. And you'll need to do that for each one of your blocks. So that got rid of those dog ears, and then now I have a 1/4 inch between here and there, and the block will go together a lot easier. Okay, the next thing I need to do is to add the B squares to this. And that is these two pieces here. So if you've got directional fabric, you'll need to watch how you lay this, because you want this piece to go the same direction. So decide if you have stripes like here, do you want them to go horizontal or do you want them to go vertical? It doesn't matter either way, it's however you want to do it. Okay, for the B and the D pieces, we need triangles, so we're going to cut these in half on the diagonal. So what I need to do, since both of these pieces are actually directional, this is a floral piece, and all of the flowers, all the stems are going in one direction. But this is busy enough that I don't think it's that noticeable, but this is an obvious directional print. It's got a stripe in it. So I want to watch what I'm doing with that, and I'd like to have this one going horizontal. So that piece is going to go here. So I want to cut this direction on this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that there. And this will be for one block, this one will be for the other. Now the same with this piece. If I could go this way and the stems are going down, so I think I'll go that way. So this is a good way to determine how you want to cut your B and your D squares. Lay this across your square and see which way you want to cut it. Which way do you want the direction of this fabric to go? So I think this will look better if the daisies are upright, so I'm going to cut it this direction. Okay, so I got those cut. So D goes here and B goes there. So this is what we're going to make right here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these on, and this is going to be the same thing as when I sewed these on. I'm going to sew this one on first, and then I'll sew this one on. Now on this one, I'm going to match up this edge up here and sew down, and then I'll open it and press, and then I'll sew this one. So I'm matching these upper corners of the triangles right there, and then I'll sew this. So they're going to overlap like here. Right there. So we'll go sew these. I'm going to line up the points of these two triangles, and once again I'm using a scant 1/4 inch. I'm going to press this. Now you're sewing with biased edges there, so be careful and not stretch those out of shape. Now I'm going to match up the other triangle. Again, I'm going to press this open. So here we go. So this is the piece that we just made. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off these dog ears. This one, you don't need to worry about the seam allowance. This should be a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so you don't have to worry about trimming this whole unit, but you can certainly go ahead and measure this and make sure that it's correct. Okay, so now we're going to work on the lower part of this section here. And so we have the C square and the E square. Okay, the E square is going to match here, and the C square is going to match this fabric here. What we want to do though is to trim off these corners by using the easy corner triangle method. So we'll need I squares for that, and these have the line drawn on the wrong side. So we're going to lay these on the outer corners, right here and here. And then sew on the drawn line. So what we'll have, it'll look like this when we're done. And then we'll sew these two pieces together, and you can see the tulip forming here. So we're going to go ahead and sew these. And then I'm just going to sew these one right after the other. Okay, so now we need to trim off the corner here, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and double check before you cut to make sure that you haven't sewn this on the wrong side. And I've already checked mine. I know they're sewn on correctly. So, okay. And then I'm going to press this piece out. So here are the pieces. They're going to go like this. So now I need to sew these two together, which is really easy. We're just going to sew this seam right here. Okay, so there's the bottom of the tulip. I'm going to press this, and I'm going to press this seam open. Okay, so here we go. And I did press that seam open. You don't have to, you can press it to one side if you want. And then we're going to sew these two pieces together. So we'll have the flower head done here. So I'm going to line up this point here with the seam in this piece here. So that should all be centered. I'm just going to check and make sure that's in the right spot, and I'm going to go ahead and pin here in the center and then match up my ends and just sew this together. Okay, so there is the flower head. So I'm going to go ahead and press, and we'll move on to the next step. So here we go. All right, let's move on to the stem unit. For the stem unit, we're going to start with 2 J rectangles, which are right here, and then an F rectangle, and this is the stem, and we're just going to sew this piece in between these two. So very simple. And I am going to press this before I sew the other J rectangle, and I'm going to press it out. So there's that half, and I've pressed towards the J rectangle. So I'm going to add the next J rectangle to the F rectangle. I'm going to press this open, and I'll show you that. Okay, so here we have that stem unit. Okay, now we're going to do some more easy corner triangles, so I'm going to adjust the camera and show you how we're going to do that. Okay, here's our stem unit here, and we're going to add the top of the leaf to it. So I have my 2 G squares, and I have my line drawn on the back. Now if you have a directional fabric like I do, you're going to want to make sure that you have your line drawn so you'll get the results the way you want them. So here's my line, and when I sew it here and flip this back, it's going to look like that. So we have that. I'm going to weigh this down for a second here. This piece, I lay this here and flip it over, it's going to look like that. So I've got these lines drawn so that these stripes will go vertical. So we're going to go ahead and sew these on, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the other pieces. We're going to sew one on first. We're going to trim it and flip, and then we'll sew this one on, trim it and flip and press. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. So I'm going to trim this down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when I flip it, I've got that. So I'm going to go ahead and press this open. So there's that. And now I'm going to do the same with the other piece. And I'm going to make sure I'm going to be sewing that on the right direction. Looks like I've got it here. And then trim this one, and I'll press this one, and we'll take a look at it. There's the top of the stem unit. Okay, so now we're going to make the base unit. So we need the H rectangles and some I squares again. So we just need one of the H rectangles and 2 I squares. So here we have the base, and the stem unit is going to go right on top of that. We need these I triangles to go down at the base, and they're going to go like here and here. And we'll do the same as we did up here. We'll sew, we'll trim, flip and press, and then we'll have this kind of a look. So you can see how that makes the leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these on, and I can sew one right after the other because they're not overlapping, so I don't need to do one, trim, and then do the other. So I'm going to do all the sewing first, and then I'll trim and then press. So let's sew right on the drawn line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then let's press these open. So now I need to sew these two together. So we're going to match up the green fabrics, kind of like that. So right sides together. Okay, so here we go. So now I'm going to press this one. Okay, so here we go. So now, okay, so now we have two pieces. We have the flower head and we have the stem. So we need to sew these two pieces together. All right. Okay. All right. There we have the block. I'm going to press and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here is our finished block. So it really isn't that difficult. You just have to watch the steps, follow the diagrams that are in the pattern. That will help a lot. And just take your time. I wrote little notes on here as I made my first couple of blocks, so that helped me quite a bit too. So here's the block I just made, and here is my sample block. So you can see how those would look together. So now this will make a 12-inch square with those together. Okay, so that is it for the tulip block portion of the quilt along for the Flower Garden quilt. I think these are real pretty, and I'm going to have 4 different colorways. I've got this peach, a teal, a pink, and a cream. And the pattern that I printed out has all the tulips of the same colorway all in one row. So there'll be 1 row of teal, 1 row of peach, 1 row of cream, 1 row of pink. But I may change my mind and mix them all up. I haven't decided yet. Okay, in the next video, we're going to go over some layout options and some instruction on how to sew these sections together. So that would be the center medallion and the rows of tulips. And then we'll talk about how to sew in the sashing to complete the top, and then the borders. So that might be more than one video. I don't know yet because I haven't gotten to that point. I'm still working on my tulip blocks. So I now have 5 tulip blocks done. I have 11 more to go, and then I'll be ready to start on the layout. So I hope you'll give this block a try, whether you use this in this particular quilt or if you decide to do something different with this. You know, 2 of these together make a 12-inch square. So, you know, you can make a pillow, and you can make a 12-inch pillow, or you could add borders to it and make a larger pillow if you want. You can make a string of them, make a table runner. You can make placemats, wall hangings. There's lots of different things you can do with these blocks. And I think it's good timing with hopefully spring coming soon in the next 6 weeks or so, depending on what part of the country you're in and part of the world. For us here in Missouri, we never know. I mean, we get snow in April, sometimes in May. Weather is unpredictable around here, so, you know, we never know. So I really like these blocks. These I'm really happy with the way these have turned out. So I think they're cute. So that is it for this video. So if you like this video, please click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.